It's been a long time between videos. We hit big milestones on this cart. We're not too far off now, so sit back and enjoy as there's a lot to cover. We ended up putting a new sensor in there. We thought we might as well finish off the filler neck since it was out. So as you can see now, a bit off track on the electrical side of things, but at least now the highest point is that, because before with the old vrod one I was trying to use, it was slightly lower. Well, it wasn't low, it was basically in line with that, so this is indefinitely higher now, so happy with that. It's all those small details, like we want to make sure that the cap was actually running parallel. I didn't want to mount it so then the cap was like that, so you always got to think ahead with things like that. So that's basically all the sensors done now, so we can start plugging it out. The oil pressure sensor, that's all sorted now, so the hole down there, we ended up tapping it out to 7/16 UNF. Reason being is that the hole was already close enough to that tap size. So what we're going to do is put a grub screw in there, no clearance issues, everything's nice and clear. We're also going to be getting rid of the Schrodel valve off there and just putting a grub screw in there as well. So yeah, pretty happy now. So what we're going to do is move on to the inlet temperature one. Air inlet temperature sensors all sorted now. So what we've done over here, we've assigned all the wires where they need to go. We haven't added any of the extra positives or negatives in there yet. We'll do that once we actually start pinning it out. That's the easy part. So say everything's all assigned here. Got all the plugs now, they've all arrived. So this is another thing we put up on Instagram as a poll. These are our valve blocks, so they do the exact same job. One's just big, bulky and over the top. And these are nice and slim. These are your DD air ride ones, and these are our AccuAir billet valve blocks. So basically, yeah, put a poll up on Instagram. Between the two, everyone wanted these. I wanted to run them, but I say we're building this for the entertainment and what all the people want. Here are all of our charts, as you would have seen yet again on Instagram. There goes the pinouts we're doing for the cart, and here goes the factory vrod wiring loom, as we're going to be using a few of the factory bits and pieces. So other than that, we can start, yeah, so put this back in the cart, cut everything to length, pull it back out again, and start pinning it out, and then adding all the extra feeds and grounds we need to do on the loom. All the wires are now laid out to their allocated designations. So it's quite a small loom. Still need to add a couple of positive and earth feeds, likewise with the coils. So there'll be a few more wires going in there, but not a lot. Moral of this story is, here goes all the wires we won't be using. There's still a couple in here like this one that we'll still need to use, like the main feed. Also there's some earths that need to go to the battery and whatnot, but majority of these won't be getting used, which is a bonus. It means that if we can complete this project before the time, we now have enough provisions to do the nitrous and also convert this motor to a paddle shift on the steering wheel. So that's the bonus of having a lot of excessive wires left. So we will lay them out, and then the rest we're not going to use, we'll just depin them. And yeah, that's basically it. So it's quite good how the Haltech runs off CAN system, so you can get away with not having to utilize a lot of wiring. You can just use the CAN system. So yeah, very handy. As I said, I'm no Haltech expert. I've never owned one before, never wired one obviously. I've only ever done microtech, so yeah, it should be good fun. Quite like being able to utilize all the technology. As I say, we'll be using all this stuff here as well to control the air ride. So Haltech's going to be controlling the air ride on the golf cart. So that's simple. As you can see, everything is all now cut to length, and we'll put a bit of tape down here roughly where everything's going to start branching out. So what we can do now is pull it out of the cart, start pinning it up, add our extra earths or positive feeds, whatever each sensor or the coils and stuff need, and then that's basically it. Put into perspective now, and hopefully this gives you fellas confidence to give this stuff a go at home yourself. It always looks daunting when you see a lot of wires like that if you haven't done anything like this before, but as I say, I've only ever done microtech, never done Haltech. But the best thing, as I've mentioned before, is the CAN system where you don't need to do a lot of wiring, you can just plug everything in. So you think about that, that's all we need to run this motor, and right there is basically everything you need to also run a 2-rotor and a normal 4-cylinder, except that obviously you need 2 more injectors and 2 more coils and maybe a cam angle sensor if you're running one of them. But as I say, very simple setups. You might not even need that loom because that's for drive-by-wire. So as I say, give this type of stuff a go. You can't go wrong. Minus, negative, that's it. Well, that went 0 to 100 really quickly. So as you seen on the last slide, we had a few inputs and outputs, enough to get the motor running. And I thought, why not just utilize every single thing we can to give this card as much features as we can. So as you can see, all the orange is basically all the sensors, inputs and outputs and whatnot. A few other bits and pieces. We don't actually have a lot left. We'll go over to the chart shortly and we'll see what we have left. So basically I think there's only 3 outputs left, but we actually can't use them because there's not enough area in the software that we can actually assign them to anywhere. So I could be wrong, but as I say, this is just for the now. I've only just opened up the Haltech software, and touching base on that, we'll go over to the computer and I'll tell you what I've done wrong. So this is where I sort of went wrong, and this can save you guys a lot of time. So what I originally should have done was open up the software first, but what I did was got the wiring diagram, figured out what inputs and outputs we had. I then moved over to here, made up a manual spreadsheet, went from the spreadsheet, assigned the wires to the Loom, and then once I'd done that, I cut the wires to length as you've seen. Then I went to come back to the software and then let the software know where I've assigned the wires. But what you actually want to do, it saves so much time, is you open the software first, select your ECU, then you go and tell the ECU what sensors you're going to run. And once you do that, it'll automatically populate a spreadsheet like this with all the colors assigned to it. And that way there, if you don't know how inputs and outputs work, it'll physically tell you, yes, this will work, no, this won't work. So as you can see, these are all the ones we have left. Ignore this one because these are your cam sensors. So we've got 3 outputs left and 2 inputs, but basically the way it is in the ECU, I actually can't run anymore. I've got 1 more output I think left I can run, and I can run these 2 inputs here. So basically we've maxed out this whole ECU, and that's what I wanted to do in the end, to show what the capabilities are of it. And from a DIY perspective like me, never touching this stuff before, it's pretty good to show once we get this car going, there's no reason you can't do this. Happy with that. The local locksmith managed to pull this apart and make us up a key, since the key didn't come with the golf cart. I'm very happy we didn't have to drill any more holes to run any other extra buttons, because I didn't want anything else in the cart. I still want it to remain like a golf cart. I'm not a fan of having rocker switches everywhere and all those type of hidden switches. I like everything to work off a key or something similar without having to flick a million switches to get fans going, fuel pump and all that type of carry on. So we managed to figure out which wires we need to keep. We're utilizing the switch here as an off and on switch. It's not a momentary switch like a normal car where you turn it over to engage the starter motor and it will release back. We've made it so it's just simply off and on, and we've managed to figure out which wires we need to keep in the circuit so we can set it up like that. Here we have it. So time to put a plug on it. We've made a start on our first relay box, and what we've used are some of these solid barrel crimpers here, and we managed to crimp them. Probably a better tool, but I've just got this little hydraulic one here. Has a few different sets of dies. I've got this actually for doing battery terminals, but it comes with a few small dies, so I've been using them to crimp when you've got multiple lines going into one. Seems to work well. So I've just made up the battery holder now. Real simple. Just folded up a few bits and pieces. Got some little outriggers this way. Reason being is that the battery is 21 kg, so it's quite heavy. So yeah, there we have it. So what we're going to do now is make a little top brace out of some scrap aluminium, so we'll see what we can turn it into. So there we have it. I've gone from a bit of scrap aluminium to a billet part that looks like it's come off a CNC. So how we achieved that, we used the radius tool you'd have seen on the RX2 videos. We went around the outside the perimeter, then how we done the center, real easy as well. We used a hole saw, then just cut it out with the grinder. And then we've done these 2 holes here, and then we done the radius on the outside there on the belt sander, and then just tune the inside up with a file. So real simple. Took probably about 40 minutes or so to make it, but it looks a lot nicer than what we're going to use. So yeah, there we have it. We're going to throw it on the cart. Bringing it back old school, so what we're going to do is make a template to save the guesswork of trying to get all these measurements bang on. Just quickly throw some masking tape on there. Then we also got our holes there, so we'll transfer it straight onto here. And then once we mark the holes out, we can bolt it to the back. We'll cut the center out, and then we'll put the dash back on top and then trace the perimeter so it's a perfect measurement. Fold it up, that's it. Well, that took a while. We ended up doing it all by hand. So the initial cut in the sensor, we just had a hole saw that was basically size for size. Drilled a couple more holes just to get rid of the excess material. Then we just done it all by hand with the file. So what we're going to do now is bolt the dash to it on this side obviously, and then we're going to trace the perimeter. So this was just a rough guide yesterday just so I knew how big of a sheet we needed. So we'll put the dash on this side, trace the perimeter around, cut it out, and then fold it up, a couple more holes, throw it in the cart, and that's the dash mounted. Here goes the mount all done. You probably can't see it through the lens, but it looks like another billet part, just like the battery clamp. There's a nice chamfer around there, so once it's on the all bolted to the dash and powder coated, you swear it was a broad item. So there we have it. Got some scrap aluminium. We're going to be mounting our relay boxes now. So this one here be 190-degree fold, as this one here mounts vertically, and this one will be a 90-degree fold here, then another 90 back out, as the Haltech box is mounted horizontally. So you cut it out now, fold it up, simple as that. Well done now, ready to fold up. So to make up this little random spacer, as you can see the mounts down here are offset, so it goes on the side here, so everything will sit nice and flush now. So as you can see, we just straight punched through with the old hole saw through the meter gauge and everything. The reason being is I wanted to keep that little section in here. So I would like to have had this lower, but you can see why I couldn't, because if we had it in lower, we would have broke through to here. We actually couldn't physically put a nut on the back. So we already had to cut the two bottom ones off. And that one goes in there like that. The reason why I wanted it lower, just so I lined up with this here, with that trim, but there we have it. Not much we can do about it. She's going to work. Majority of the electrical hardware is all mounted now. As you can see, we had to flip the EC up 180 degrees, so now we've got a big hole at the top. Reason being is the battery was too big. Our wires ran through that way there as well, so we're going to now reroute the loom and also cut it to length, to its new length. But as you can see, the relay boxes are all now in, and if you look down here, it makes sense now why we needed to make that little spacer, because if we didn't, this relay box would be sitting crooked. It won't be sitting parallel with the mount here. So they're both the same height, same even spacing between the mount and the boxes. Here's our battery mount all done, so just like that. Underneath, so you got two bolts in the center holding the whole frame down, and that there is connected to the main, there's like a main chassis underneath, and then the two outriggers you would have seen. I'm going to be making some big plates just to keep it all secure and make it a lot stronger. So that's basically all that done. Got the dash and buttons done, just got to get an ignition, sort all that out, do the bus bars, mount the relay starter solenoid, and that's basically it. Start wiring it up. With the magic of the YouTube, we now have a loom that's about 60% complete. We'll go over everything once it's fully completed. Just thought I'll show you the loom out before we wrap it up. One thing I'd probably recommend is getting a loom that's not terminated like this one. I spent a lot of time mucking around trying to work around this. It's alright if you wanted a hard and fast job, but if you want something really tidy, I'd just definitely recommend getting your own connectors and running your own wires. That way you can concentrically twist it. It'll look a lot nicer. It's because you got all those TM points here, how they come pre-terminated, and do this real messy, a lot of loops and stuff, and the time it would take to de-pin it and redo it all, it's just not worth it for a golf cart. So good learnings for next time. I'll never buy a pre-terminated one. I'll just do my own one, just be a lot easier, a lot nicer, and everything will just flow a lot better. But as I say, for the average DIY home, well, that's me, but yeah, if you want a hard and fast job, definitely grab one of these looms. It'll make life easy. But anyhow, there we have it. So we've got a few done already. All this end up here is all done, but we'll do a quick overview once we've put all the heat shrink on it and all the connectors on it. Wiring loom's basically all done now. A few more little bits and pieces, so next video you'll see it all complete. So that's another thing I don't think I've touched based on the material we've used. So all of our heat shrink is this DR25. It's a Raychem branded stuff. Why I like it, it's really malleable, so it's not glue lined obviously. That's the SCL stuff, so as you can see. And hence why I like to twist the wires, because it makes them really flexible. So if you had those wires straight, you couldn't do that type of stuff. So yep, just looks a lot nicer that way too, real tidy. And as for the ends of the plugs, as I mentioned just before, these ain't boots, they're just the glue line heat shrink all over everything. Makes it a nice sealed off little unit, and yeah, just makes it look really tidy. That's basically it. This one here, we've got our normal heat shrink underneath it, but we've also put some like heat resistant tube protection stuff over top of it. Keep it away from the heat, because that's our main sensor there for the whole motor. Obviously the crank angle sensor. If it wasn't for that, the motor has no idea what to do. The ECU doesn't know where the motor is, so basically the main sensor of the whole cart. So yeah, that's it. So this tape here, why I like to use this tape, it's a little bit excessive in the center, but you might have seen on some of the looms, I should have taken a video of it. So I like to put a bit of that tape at the end here. Reason being is when you're heating up the heat shrink, you don't want it to burn your wires. It's just a great way to protect your wires while you're doing heat shrink. Yeah, this stuff here, just some braided sleeving. You just slide it over, use a bit of glued line heat shrink again on the ends. That keeps it all nice and stable in there. So yeah, that's basically it really. for the material side of things, as I say, they're not very hard, these things. You can't really get this type of stuff wrong. We're now going to make our bus bar mount. As you can see, it's got our starter motor relay as well. I was going to mount this under the cart, then I thought to myself, better future-proof this whole thing in case someone borrows it one day and this fails. At least they don't have to climb underneath the cart. They can, you know, just chuck a screwdriver between them and it'll start up again. So yeah, let's go and do that. Here goes our bus bar mount all done now. As you can see, the angles everywhere. Side profile, tapers that way, yet again to match the body shape of the cart, then also that taper down there. One bolt hole on the back, two on the front. We're going to throw it in the cart. Here it is all done. You can see why we needed all those angles to match the body of the cart. So basically bolt it to the ground and then we'll move on to the ignition. So we've just run the loom out. It looks a lot nicer now that it's not on a messy bench. You can sort of see them all individually now. Everything fits well apart from the airbag one. I have no idea what I've done there. Miscalculated that measurement. So since it's not very critical, I'll just make like a little flying lead and go from there up into the plug there. Be a lot easier than cutting all the heat shrink off. Apart from that, sweet as, everything worked out well. Happy with that. Ended up finishing off our drive-by wire, so that's all done now. So that's basically the loom side of things done here. So what we need to do now is cut all these to length and hook them up to the bus bar, hook up our starter motor solenoid, and yeah, that should basically be the wiring done. It's quite satisfying now. We're getting to the stage of the cart where things are starting to look aesthetically good instead of just making things. So that's why I quite enjoyed doing this bus bar terminal setup, just to make everything look nice. Some good symmetry going on. You'll see it shortly. As soon as we put it back into the cart, you'll see where it all feeds out to and stuff. We got one spare earth pole, so what we're going to do, we haven't brought the air compressor yet. What I want to do is see how much current everything is drawing, and then we'll sort the compressor last basically. But we've got a spare pole for that, for the earth side of things. It's already wired up through a relay for the positive side. So that's basically it. As you can see, starter motor solenoid there. Got our feed from the battery to there. Then from here on out goes to the actual starter motor itself. Got our main earth strap, battery cables. Yeah, good to go. Just throw it in the cart. So here we have the electrical system 100% complete, apart from the loom for the drive-by wire pedal. So once we mount the pedal, we can finish off that. So there it is, nice and tidy, all done. The only thing we haven't done is we don't have a compressor. So the reason why I haven't got a compressor is I want to get the whole cart up and running and see how much amps we're drawing and see what's available, because I don't want to get a compressor that's too big, that's going to be reliant on the battery as such. So we'll see what's available once the whole system's up and running and the cart's running. Then we can buy a compressor to suit, hence why there's nothing in that last port. That's going to be the earth for our compressor. So that's basically everything there, and that's why you'll see a couple of messy wires down here, like those red ones and this one here. That one's there to activate the relay for our compressor. So once that's all done, we can mount that one. That's our maxi fuse for the whole system. So there we have it. So we livened the system up and there's been zero issues, no popped fuses or anything. So we've got the Haltech talking off everything and it's all working now. So these switches here are our air rides. So this is our front up and down. So you'll hear the clicking of the solenoids. Up, down, likewise for the rear. Got our fan override. And yeah, that's our starter motor. So as you can see, everything's working there. So pretty happy with that. Oh yeah, well, I guess I was expecting it to go to plan, because you can't really get wires wrong. And if you do, they're going to tell you straight away by popping a fuse. So there we have it. That's the whole electrical system for the cart all done. Now that all the electrical jobs are out of the way, we can now move back to some mechanical work. So what we need to do now is decide how we're going to do our pedals. The throttle's pretty easy. We've got an RX8 pedal here, so we can put that in there. So we need to remove these two, and then we're going to decide what we're going to use for the clutch and brake pedal. So to suit the theme of the cart, or the vrod and Mazda stuff, we've got an RX2 manual pedal box, and we also have the spare Willwood pedal box as well. So we can either use one of these two, or we'll make our own. So yeah, I'll pull these pedals out first and see how ugly they're going to be, these boxes here sitting up under here. So I don't really want to make a cover. I want to try and look as golf cart as we can, so we might have to go down the route to making our own pedals, so we'll soon see. So let's remove those, mount the throttle pedal, and then we'll have a good plan on where we're at. We're up to making the pedal box now. Decided it's going to be the easiest way. So what we've done is our basic measurements. We've got our pivot points and stuff. We worked it all out. And if we put our pivot point up over here, this side here is a drive-by wire pedal. So if we push it through its motion, we have roughly around about 60mm of travel, so which should be ample for the master cylinders. So we've transferred it onto a bit of scrap steel here, so we're going to fold it at this line here. That section there is going to be cut out for the steering column to go through, and then we'll make some, basically be 4 triangles like that shape for each side, and then we can put our pins through there for each individual pedal. And yeah, should be a real simple setup. Be a bit of mucking around doing it. So I'm just trying to utilize what I've got lying around. Would have been nice to have some new steel, but it's night at the moment, so the easiest option is just to use what we got. So all the holes are drilled out now, as you can see. So what we're going to be doing is folding it in half. These holes here are sides for the Wilwood and Tilton style master cylinders. Here goes our pedal box all done now. It's all folded up. Added those ribs in there for obvious reasons. We need somewhere for the pedals to pivot off, so we've just put a bolt in there for now. We've shaped out the back. See where the master cylinders are going to go. Machined up our, well, like spacers to go between there and there on the pedal, so obviously there's no side to side movement. That's basically it. As for the pedal pads, we might leave them till last later on down the track. We'll probably go RX8 ones to match the theme of the RX8 accelerator pedal. But apart from that, yeah, let's drill some holes and mount it to the cart now. And just like that, we have a gear lever. So a very simple setup. As you can see, we put a nice little negative slot in there. How we done that was on a drill and used a compound slide with a little end mill. We managed to put that little slot in there just to give some detail, just like the nice chamfers around it. We used a chamfer tool. It actually looks like a billet part. You'll swear we brought it. We've done 3 different styles of the actual lever itself. Went for a round one, a square one, and obviously ended up finishing off using the rectangle. Just looked a lot nicer, and it went in here really well. And as for the gear knob, we've done 3 different styles. We had like a ratchet style, then we had another round one like that where we had bolts going through it there, and then obviously ended up with just this sleek, well, I guess it's quite a common design really, and yeah, it just seems to work out really well. So the position of this, we can still adjust it down the bottom. This will end up coming right back over here somewhere, and that way there, you know, just will aesthetically look a little bit nicer, so it doesn't look like it's so close to the screen, but in person it's actually not too bad. But it actually works really well, this gear lever. Very minimal effort. As you can see, there's not a lot of throw because our pivot point's so high. The actual movement up here is not a lot. Very happy with that. So as we can see on the back, just made up a little frame, and in there you can see some PTFE bushes you would have seen us machining up. But there we have it. So we now have gears, we now have basically 80% pedals. We now got to move on to making some brakes for the front. Now the dilemma we have, so we're now up to putting some brakes on the front of this cart. And as you can see, this hub here, this is actually 4x100 stud pattern. The whole cart was sticking with the whole Mazda vrod theme, so we need to convert it to 4x110. So we've got some Series 1 RX7 disc brakes, no calipers yet, so we'll try and adapt them and see if we can get some calipers to suit. But otherwise, yeah, not too sure how we're gonna actually mount the caliper to the spindle as such. It goes in the front here, so we'll pull it all apart and we'll see what we can make. And made it, we did. Have a look at that. Who would ever thought you'd see RX7 brakes on a golf cart? I never ever envisioned the day one day I would wake up and be like, I need to put some RX7 brakes on a golf cart, but here we are. So we have a quick little overview of what we ended up doing. As you see, the main thing is the little simple bracket here. It looks simple, but man, it took a lot of measurements to get everything to land exactly where we needed it to. So it's made a 12mm plate, and we got some factory RX7 Series 1 calipers as well to match the disc, so that saved a lot of guesswork there as well. And then behind here we actually have a factory vrod wheel spacer. So I made everything just real clean round figures. I needed a 20mm spacer on the back there to make up the distance, and the factory vrod ones were 20.6, so even better again, and we get to stay with the whole Mazda and vrod thing. So let's move on to the front here. These were the factory bearings that the RX7 disc used, so this is on the back side, this was the one on the front. So what we've got is a 1-inch shaft in here, so we've machined and bored the disc out to accommodate the larger bearing in the front. And then also the one in the back is obviously bigger than 1 inch, but we've machined it all to suit the new bearings. We'll press them in with the press. Real nice tight tolerance fit there. And as I say, just like the gear lever, it's like clockwork, everything's working perfect, and yeah, couldn't be any happier, to be honest. This part here is probably not, it never bugged me as such, but it was a process. I thought, how am I actually going to adapt brakes to a front of something that's never ever had brakes on it, and there was nowhere to physically, like there's no real other place to be able to mount the bracket off. So overall, very happy with that. Probably the biggest milestone. So it's basically all downhill from here now. There we have it. How cool is that to see something that was never intended to be? This cart was never ever intended to have front brakes on it, and there we have it. So we've now converted the front obviously to 4x110 to match the rear, so RX stud pattern all around now, disc brakes, calipers, everything. That's quite cool to see. We've gone from that simple hub we saw at the start of the video to a complete disc brake setup. So there we have it. I'm going to leave the video there. It's nice to see the wheels on this cart properly now, because obviously it's the same stud pattern all around. A lot of progress has been made. Pretty happy that we were sitting with it now. It's quite nice to actually see the wheels on it properly now that we can actually bolt them on. Another overview of all the work that's been done. Very happy with how the little thing's turning out now. So yep, wiring's all done. This is all set up in the front here. We've got our screens, our buttons that work. Everything works. We've got gears. We now have brakes. It's now going to steer. Just need to tilt the air ride in the front. That's the last major mechanical job for the cart. And yeah, I think after that we start throwing some colour at it. So like anodizing, powder coating, and all that type of carry on. So overall, very happy. Major milestone getting those brakes on here. There we have it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it.